I know this is a different style of video that I normally post, but I want it to be experimental. Superman, the symbol of hope and optimism, even though he may not seem like it in the new movies. And Homelander, the guy with the face of an actor with the powers of a god. Which of these two would win in an all-out brawl? The god trying to be a human, or the human trying to be a god? Let's analyze Superman first, as he's definitely the most popular of the two characters. Remember, we are only talking about Superman from Man of Steel, meaning that any BVS and Justice League feats will not be included. There'll be a few exceptions maybe, I don't know. While talking strength, Superman's best strength feat in Man of Steel was probably the scene where Superman lifted up part of an oil rig to help some firefighters escape before the thing eventually collapsed. Now, oil rigs weigh about 30,000 tons, but Superman only holding up a pillar of an oil rig and not the whole thing would mean that he's lifting less than 30,000 tons. And this would most likely be his toughest feat in the movie, because he was doing this with extreme effort. And because Superman in this movie isn't nearly as powerful as the Superman in the later films, who can casually pull cargo ships, but his strongest feat other than that would probably be him snapping Zod's neck, which would be dependent on the durability of the Kryptonians, which we'll cover later. In the speed department, Superman in Man of Steel was able to push about Mach 27 to about Mach 30, seen in his flight from Earth to the atmosphere in the first flight. In a calculation done by Comic Books vs. the World, which I'll link in the description and pin comment, along with the rest of the things that I reference, Superman is travelling at about 35,921 kilometers an hour, or Mach 29, to cover the distance of the Kármán line. And when it comes to combat speed, Superman's combat speed is shockingly slow. Yeah. He was getting speed blitzed by Faora, whose combat speed is subsonic, which calculation is in the description, from Gubbs. In terms of durability, Superman in these movies has been a bit inconsistent in this category, as Superman here is able to survive the world engine, while in the next movie literally dies to a nuke, and if not for the sun reviving him, would have stayed dead. Because the feats are very inconsistent, I'll cover both sides. Lowballing his durability would mean that Superman took a nuke known as a W-87. This nuke has a yield of 300 to 475 kilotons. Now before everyone says, oh, it was the radiation that killed Superman. Well, this nuke happened in space, and in space, nukes work a lot differently. And as you can see on the screen, this means that only about 45 kilotons was released, and it's not really a blunt force or heat feat either. It doesn't have anything to do with radiation. And in addition, Doomsday was literally in front of Superman, and he probably tanked most of it. So Superman probably only took around 4.5 kilotons. Highballing his durability, showcased by his world engine feat that was calculated by this guy with a quite extraordinary name, would mean that he was able to tank about 1.79 gigatons of energy. In the abilities department, Superman possesses the bog standard strength, speed and durability, but also flight, laser vision, which has been calculated to be about 5,500 degrees Celsius, X-ray vision, although he can't see through lead, super hearing, enhanced smell, and hypersonic scream, but wasn't in this movie, and it was implied only in BVS, so we won't count it. But he also has his fair share of weaknesses, including the obvious, kryptonite, but also his family, who villains are able to exploit quite regularly, red sunlight, and an overloading of sensors. Now let's talk about Homelander, the lab experiment. Now within the boys verse, Homelander is seen as Superman, but instead of having loving parents, was grown up, experimented on, and tortured in a lab, and marketed as a product. As far as we've seen of his strength, Homelander was a child that was strong enough to accidentally snap the spine of a nurse by hugging her too tight, accidentally killed some of the kidnappers in episode 8 of The Boys Diabolical, which yes, is canon, mashed and overpowered Maeve and Soldier Boy, who have been shown to tank armoured trucks at full speed and also throw cars like footballs through houses, but Homelander is also known to throw jets like paper planes. But due to the budgets of the show obviously not being as much as blockbuster movies these days, they can't really show as many crazy feats of power on the small screen. But Homelander, when going to save Flight 37 with Queen Maeve, suggested that after the flight controls were destroyed and Maeve asked him to lift the plane, Homelander responded that with that much strength, he would fly straight through the hole, implying that he has that strength, but obviously that's not how physics works. But even if you defied physics like Superman's tactile telekinesis, yes, this is indeed a real ability, which pretty much just means plot armor and just allows Superman to defy physics. A Boeing 737-800, like the one seen in the show, only weighs about 79,000 kilos, or 87 US tons. Homelander has also been assumed to be able to pull a train, because A-Train, very funny. Anyway, A-Train was able to pull a train while recovering from a broken leg, and A-Train is much weaker than Homelander. This is still not as much as the Man of Steel though. As far as speed is concerned, believe it or not, Homelander is actually faster than Superman, as Homelander, in the final scene of Season 1, rescues both Billy Butcher and Madeline Stillwell's baby from a C4 explosion. Now C4's explosion speed is about Mach 23, and in order to outspeed the C4 without scratching, damaging, or dirtying himself or Butcher, as we've seen in the show, he would have had to have gone considerably faster than this. But we also know that Homelander also saved the baby as well in the explosion, and would have to have gone fast enough to fly Butcher away, come back, rescue the baby, and deliver the baby to the Soup Daycare Center we see in Season 3. This meant that he would have to have gone about double the speed of rescuing Butcher to get back to save the baby, that at this point hadn't developed powers yet and couldn't have survived alone. This would set Homelander's speed at about Mach 50, and this also sets his reaction speed as faster than Superman, as in Man of Steel, Superman blocks a punch from this big Kryptonian thing, the same one Keaton fights in the new Flash movie that I'm not bothered to see what his name is. Well, that's it. That's all he does in that movie. And in BVS, he was not fast enough to save the people who were bombed at the courthouse when Superman was on trial. And this is when he had a significant power buff, by the way. Homelander has also been shown to be fast enough to evade the human eye, as both Victoria Newman and Billy Butcher couldn't see him fly away, but also couldn't hear him enter or exit, which implies he can move faster and with less noise. Homelander showcases his combat speed as well, as he was able to quickly jolt around the room and snatch the guns away from the terrorists in the boys' Diabolical, which appears to be faster than Superman. Terrorists were barely able to track him. Also, Homelander is known to be faster than A-Train, who was fast enough to dodge and react to Starlight's plasma beams. Not light beams, plasma beams. And plasma beams can range from below to above the speed of light. And the slowest plasma beam, which we'll use for the benefit of the doubt here, would travel about 350 kilometers a second, or Mach 1020. So yeah, Homelander is fast. In fact, even faster than the Man of Steel. Please don't kill me. I mean it, please. Please, please, please!
FBI, open up!
Okay, is the raid over? I'm coming out from under my desk. I think the raid is over. When it comes to durability, Homelander is more durable than Superman as well. To an extent. If we use our lowball statistic from before, Homelander would demolish that, as Madeline Stillwell states that there isn't a weapon on Earth that they've thrown at him. They've all failed. Meaning that he can survive nuclear explosions, and on top of this, seeing that the Homelander from the show is more powerful than his comic counterpart, this would mean that this Homelander can most likely survive hydrogen bombs too. If Homelander can survive modern nuclear weapons without a scratch, which can range from the equivalent of just under a ton to upwards of 500,000 tons, or 500 kilotons of TNT, this would make Homelander more durable than lowballed Superman. And in the Boys Diabolical episode 8, which is canon to the Amazon series, Homelander is shown accidentally lasering a power plant in an attempt to stop Black Noir from leaking that he killed everyone at the plant, including the hostages, out of blind rage formed by his PTSD. After lasering it, the plant explodes point blank right in front of him and leaves Homelander without a scratch. Yes, he is seen with rubble on him and blood on him, but the blood isn't his. It's the blood of the guy that was in front of him before the thing exploded, so it's not his blood. And you may be thinking, well, Superman can just knock Homelander into space and be done with it, right? Well, you'd think wrong, because when talking to Stan Edgar about the view from the tower, Homelander says that he should see the view from space, which implies that he has been in space and has adapted to the vacuum of space. And this would mean that he'd likely be able to survive the freezing cold and cosmic radiation. But according to Newton's third law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, this could mean that Homelander being able to take in 500 kilotons of TNT could also be able to exert and dish out the same amount of energy as strength. So, taking in 500 kilotons would mean that Homelander could also exert 500 kilotons, which, as we've seen before, is able to kill Superman. Abilities wise, Homelander also has the bog standard strength, speed, durability, and stamina. And stamina is actually quite notable, as the legend has said in the show that he's never seen Homelander sweat, while the legend was the former lead of hero management at Vought. But Homelander also possesses flight, heat vision, which owes cold ending to the first episode. We see Homelander lasering through the jet, housing the mayor of Baltimore. And in this scene, his heat vision, in order to cut the jet, would have been about 12,000 degrees Celsius. But Homelander could also control this, as we see him heating up Stillwell's milk. Yeah, that's a bit of a weird scene, but anyway, as he's seen doing this, he does not melt the bottle, meaning that he does have some control over it. Homelander also has X-ray vision, which, like Superman, also has a weakness, but instead of lead, he can't see through zinc, which the boys are able to exploit on a few occasions. He has super hearing, and using this hearing, he's able to determine the heart rate of people, as he does to Huey in the show. He has an enhanced sense of smell, as he smells Butcher on Maeve, and that kind of iconic scene from season 3. And in the comic, he has a supersonic scream, but because he hasn't used it in the show, we don't count it. As far as combat skills goes, he's able to beat Bully Butcher and Soldier Boy in a 2v1, with both of them being ex-military, and Butcher being an ex-SAS soldier. And if you don't know the SAS, they are pretty much the elite of the elite soldiers. So being able to beat him in a fight is pretty impressive, I'd say. And we know he has some training, as Vought trained him against various supes when he was a child, as seen in The Boys Diabolical episode 8. And he was able to best Queen Maeve in a brawl, while she had practiced various martial arts in preparation for the fight against Homelander. And throughout all this, Homelander was still holding back against Maeve. Now the real problem with Homelander in a fight like this are his weaknesses, being his mental illness, as this guy is clearly not right in the head. If you think this guy's right, then you need to check yourself out. And his lack of a real challenge, which may or may not be his downfall. He also can be deterred by high frequency sounds, but in a fight like this, that weakness couldn't really be that exploitable. So, who would win in a fight? Well, I actually think Homelander might be able to win if it wasn't for his mental issues. And also his lack of a challenge, as pretty much no one in the show is nowhere near his level. But Homelander does have gifted intelligence. He's able to see through the plans of the boys and even outsmart Stan Edgar. But his issue is the lack of emotional and social intelligence. You see, Homelander in a fight with this would feel so lost and hopeless, as, you know, he's fighting Superman himself, the world's greatest hero, that he would just feel scared. Even if he does have the upper hand, he'd still feel too weak to fight him, and Superman's superior strength and mental state would win him the day, but in a rather tough battle though. But we know from the show that Homelander has multiple personalities, the weak and afraid Homelander, and the cunning and ruthless Homelander, that I personally call the Homelander, that we were able to see in episode 6 of season 3, that we are able to see in episode 6 of season 3, also known as Herogasm. If the cunning and ruthless Homelander were to be in control in the fight against Superman, I'd see this being a lot closer than it seems, as Homelander is not afraid to kill and most likely enjoys it, while Superman is fighting for his safety while also not wanting to kill, giving the Homelander the edge. So in a battle against Homelander, you know, the weak one, I'd say Superman wins 7-3 times. You could argue 8-2, while against the Homelander, I think the Homelander would win 6-4 times. But you can also argue for it to be equal 5-5. Now, I hope you all enjoyed the video. This is a bit of a different style to what I do, because, you know, I play games, so I don't know if anyone saw this coming. But, hey, you're watching this now, and if you made it all the way through, then comment down below and suggest if you want to see any more of these. If you do, then comment who you want to fight each other next, I guess. Like, I could make various other videos just covering the same sort of topics, because I think that I'm passionate to do with, like, comic book media, so I'm really happy to cover this on my channel. So if you have any suggestions on who should fight next, let me know. And if you want to like and subscribe, that's totally up to you. Thank you all for watching.